Hello YouTube, it's Jay. And today is Memorial Day 2023. Like to take just a few seconds to remember those of our soldiers here that have represented the United States who have fallen in combat. Just a few seconds, a moment of silence. Thank you for everything you did. Today I want to give you an update, very brief update on the channel and what's going on. I want to share with you a tournament announcement, and also we're going to go through several tips, either 5 or 7, I haven't decided yet, on using one of the most versatile shots in the game of pool, the drag and swerve shot. Now I say one shot, even though I just named 2 different shots, but those 2 shots are exactly the same with the exception of the English. And so I kind of consider drag and swerve shots one shot. We're going to go through several tips on those. So to start with, the channel update. I know it's been several months since my last video. I had the first procedure on my hand. If you remember, I have Dupuytren syndrome, which causes my fingers to draw in, and so my bridge hand especially, it's very difficult to get a stable bridge. I've had the first procedure, which was on my ring finger on my left hand. If you remember, it was bent all the way in. Now I can open it about 2/3 of the way or halfway. I'm going to have several more of these procedures over the next year. It takes about 6 weeks to heal, between 4 and 6 weeks to heal. The shots videos, they're going to be on pause while I'm getting these done. I have to have 1, 2, 3, and my thumb on this side, 4 more procedures. So we're talking many, many months. And I don't want you waiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to produce some shorter videos in the meantime. But those shots videos, they take hours and hours and hours of shooting to get all the shots in a way that you can see them, and literally weeks of shooting to get a full video. So we're going to not do those right now. What we're going to do instead is we're going to focus on how we use some of the things that we've already learned, like the drag and the swerve shot. So I'm trying to get things going again, but I'm rusty. It's probably I'm going to miss some shots. My stroke's going to look like hell. I know that. We'll live with that for the sake of the information. So the tournament that I'm talking about is in Atlanta. It's July 15th and 16th. At Q's 2. It is a charity benefit tournament that, let me tell you just a quick story. I know we're going to make this brief. Quick story, buddy of mine was in Afghanistan, stepped on an IED, lost a leg, and a whole bunch of other medical challenges came with that. That was in 2012. Today, in 2023, 11 years later, the Semper Fi Fund is still calling him to see if he needs anything. And any charity that is willing to follow through over a 10+ year period is a charity that I want to support. So they have my utmost admiration, and they are the beneficiaries of the first tournament. So let me show you the flyer for the tournament. I created a charity specifically for pool events to raise money, community fundraisers, for veteran-related charities. So this one is for the Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund. Semper Fi Fund and America's Fund supports people from all of the services. Started out as Marines only, which is where the Semper Fi Fund name came from. but over the years they have expanded. Almost all of their money goes directly to the benefit of people. Now, that said, let's go ahead and get into these tips. So I'm not going to go deep into how to execute these, how to execute the shot. I've already done a video on that does a pretty good job of it. I'll put a card up here for that video on how to do it and how to practice. Very briefly, the idea behind a drag or a swerve shot, you're going to use bottom English to cause the cue ball to spin backwards, creating drag on the, having the felt create drag on it. It's going to go for a ways with a little bit of backspin, then it's going to slide, and then it's going to roll forward. Okay? The way that you perform a drag shot is you hit below center on the center of the cue ball, so 6 o'clock spin, and you hit it with speed to go a little bit of the way down, and you saw right here it slid for just about an inch, and then it rolled forward. Okay, that's a drag shot. So let's talk about something real quick. If I'm shooting straight in, the forward momentum of the cue ball, first of all, the cue is going to be going fairly decent speed. It's going to stop and slide, and then it's going to release forward. Okay. If I make a full ball hit, that forward momentum is going to be about the same distance on this side of the ball as it is on this side of the ball, roughly. Okay? So if I hit it, and it's dragging, 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 slide, 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 starts to roll forward here, my ending position on that cue ball is going to be about here. Okay? Give or take a little bit. It's a little bit variable depending on the speed of the drag shot, but that's roughly, it's roughly where it releases and starts rolling forward is where it is the distance that it's going to end the shot, right? Give or take a little bit, okay? It's not a perfect science. A lot of it has to do with how hard you hit it, how much of a drag shot you put on it. But on a typical drag shot, that's about what you're going to get. So you see there, it was spinning, 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 slide, 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 started to roll forward right about here, hit the ball here, and ended here. Okay, so here to here, here to here, about the same distance. So that would be a typical use of a drag shot, what I just did. Okay, you saw I didn't want to roll it because I have a fairly small window to land in, so I didn't want to roll the cue ball around. So I played the drag shot so that it would roll forward and stay inside that window for the four ball. Should really switch those. Okay, that's your typical use for the drag shot. So number one use for the drag shot is holding up the cue ball while rolling forward. Okay, if I slow roll it on an unknown table, that cue ball may roll off and then I miss my shot. So this allows us to hit the ball harder, eliminate table roll from the shot, but still get that slow roll effect going forward. That's the number one use of the drag shot. Number two on the drag shot. Let's say I've got something like something like this, right? Where I've got traffic over here, okay? In a typical scenario, if this traffic wasn't here, I would hit this ball firmly so that the cue ball hits the rail, and comes over here, maybe even hits the rail and comes into the line of the shot. So that would be how I would play this if this traffic wasn't here. But now I've got this traffic, right? And if I hit any of these balls, I'm gonna have a problem getting on my 5. So rather than trying to weave in between these balls, I mean, it could be done. I could go here with just stun, hit there, try to have a little side spin to get through here. And a lot of players will try that. But instead of doing that, what I can do is drag to the 4 ball so that I have enough speed to roll it in, but the cue ball just comes off the rail a little bit. And so I hold the cue ball on the side. And we're going to talk about this one even further when we talk about swerve, because you can make that even more effective with swerve. There's a dynamic that we need to understand, okay? And we talked about this before. The percentage of the hit on this ball is the percentage of speed that gets taken off the cue ball, right? So in this case, I'm hitting about a half ball hit. That means 50% of the speed at the time of contact is going to be lost to the 4 ball. The 4 ball is going to pick up half the speed of the cue ball at the time of contact, half the momentum. So if we're thinking about a drag shot, if we drag this and we were shooting straight into it, if I hit it here, it's going to go the same distance on the other side, right? If I was hitting a full ball, but I'm not hitting a full ball. I'm hitting a half a ball, which means that whatever this distance from the time it starts rolling forward until the time it hits this ball, it is going to go twice as far because we lose half of the momentum on the cue ball, right? So we make our contact. If we hit it at speed to get here, it's actually going to come out and go twice as far. So we need to be careful with our speed and our control on this shot. And again, that original video has how to practice your speed for these shots, right? So what I want is I want to hit this with speed so that we minimize the amount of forward roll. We want forward roll, but we want to minimize it, okay? So slide, 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 start rolling forward. Now we've got about an inch or about 3 inches, right? Slide, we want slide to here, start rolling forward right here. We will have about, you can see about my finger width of hit, and then we're going to hit the rail. We're going to have half of that again, and then double. So we expect this to come out somewhere in this area if I perform this correctly. And we get out perfect on our 5, right? So we held that up using a draw shot or a drag shot. That's what we want to accomplish. So remember, when you've got a ball over by the rail and you've got traffic and you can't go back and forth, a drag shot is an option to hold the cue ball up in a general area. Okay, it's this, the speed is not going to be perfect, but if you've got half the table to land in where you'll still have a shot, this is a viable option, and you'll see the pros do that a lot in the tournament. Okay, so that's drag shots. Let's talk about the swerve shot. Okay, because the swerve shot is, in my opinion, one of the most important specialty shots in the game. A swerve shot is nothing more than a drag shot with side spin. So instead of hitting this at 6 o'clock, I'm going to hit it at about 5 o'clock. And if you saw it, it was going this way, and then it turned and went that way. So it went this way, turned, and went that way. The way that that works is that, remember that your friction on the table is straight line friction, right? So if I hit this over here, this ball is spinning this way, spinning this way. As it moves, as it slides, it continues to slide in the same direction. When it turns over, it then goes in the direction of my my English, right? The way that that works is if you look at the line, vertical on the ball, and I'll put up a drawing in just a second so you can see this, but if you look at the vertical line on the ball and you look at the angle from the center of the ball to where you made contact, that is the angle that it's going to turn after it's done spinning forward. Because side spin is not affected by this friction. So as it's sliding, it's sliding, it's sliding, it turns at the angle that you had, but it's now spinning after the turn. The side spin is still there. Okay, that's important to know. Okay, so first of all, we talked about swerve and how the angle gets measured, but how do we actually use this? Okay, so typically you will use a swerve shot when you have an intervening ball. Maybe it's a little far away for a jump shot. Okay, and we want to pocket the ball so that ball's makeable. Let me make it not makeable. Okay, you cannot make this ball directly. You're going to have to either hit up here with a lot of spin and cut and come across and hit it into the pocket, or you're going to have to just accept that you're not going to make that ball and play it safe here. Right now, if you know me, most cases I would prefer the safe here. But in this case, and we'll talk about why this specific case in just a minute, but in this case, I would consider a swerve shot a viable option, and I would probably try the swerve shot. And there's a reason for that. But let's talk about how to execute this swerve shot with this particular layout. Okay, so what we want to do, and I need to point something out here. I use a real wood shaft, okay? This is a maple shaft. And I use all of my cues all have maple shafts. I do not use low deflection shafts, and this shot is one of the reasons why. If you're using if you're using a normal wood shaft, then I can hit this with a level cue, and the deflection from the cue, if I hit this on the right side, the deflection from the cue pushes this ball to the left, right? So if I hit this and I hit it on the left side, just the natural bend and deflection in the wood shaft is going to push it out to the left. So I can hit this with a level cue and shoot my swerve shot. For those of you that are using zero deflection shafts or low deflection shafts, whatever you want to call them, I don't think there's actually such a thing as a zero deflection shaft. I think they all have some deflection. But if you're using a low deflection shaft, you may have to raise the butt of the cue a little bit to get the same effect that I would get with a level cue. Okay? You will definitely have to raise the butt of the cue more than I do, so you're going to have to practice this to get it down. I'm going to move that cue ball back a little so that I don't have to lean or balance. Okay, so here's how I'm going to figure out this shot. Okay, So first, I'm going to pick a place that is safely past the intervening ball. Now I don't want to come out here, now we're doing masse, and we don't want to do masse. We never want to do a true masse in a tournament if we don't have to. If there is any other option, we would rather do anything else other than a masse in a tournament or in a game that matters. So what we're going to do is pick a spot that is safely past this ball. And when I say safely, we could try to get as close to this ball as we could and we'd have less swerve necessary, but we don't want to do that because if we underhit it, we're going to hit this ball. Okay? So we want a place where we're safely out past that ball. Okay, so this would be where I want the turn to happen. So if I look at this and I say, okay, that is my direction of aim. If we look at the angle formed by these two cues, that is the angle I need to hit the cue ball. So again, remember, vertical line down the middle of the cue ball, and then we want this angle to that ball, and it's going to be mirrored. So this angle is to the right, so I'm going to hit on the right. If this angle was to the left, I would hit on the left. Because whichever side I hit on is the direction the cue ball is going to go. Okay, so let's see if I can pull this off. Okay, well, I didn't make it, but you saw I swerved around it and I got the hit. All right. So that's how you figure out your hit on a shot like that, where you're completely obscured. You find a place safely past the ball where if you underhit it, so remember it's going to be swerving to the right here, so we want to be far enough out to the left side of that ball to have it swerve around and make it. We want to have it safely out. So in this case, if I was to underhit it just a little bit, I'm going to start to swerve early. I'm going to start to swerve to the right, and I don't want to make contact with that 5. So I want to make it far enough out that I'm not going to hit that 5, and I want to control that swerve as precisely as I can to this point. Okay? Takes a lot of practice, but well worth it. Now, tip number 4, or use number 4. If this ball is close to the side rail, I can't hit it, okay? And let's just say, not only can I not hit it, but let's say we got something like this, and now not only can I not hit it, but I can't get the angle to kick into it. And maybe there's some traffic down here that's preventing me from coming behind it, which is what most people would do in that case, but I've got traffic here. So I really have no way to get to this 4 ball. And let's just make this a little more interesting and say that this route to the 4 has also been taken away. So I can't kick up this way and hit the 4. Okay? So I have no way to get a good hit on that 4. I could go off this rail and try to hit it, but what does that do? I have no chance of making the shot. I'm going to switch these 2 balls just for the sake of argument. So I have no chance of hitting this 4 and getting out of this well. I could try a jump shot, but this is an iffy jump shot. Remember, never jump towards the rail. You always want to jump in the open table. Where you've got a clear landing zone here, I would have to jump over and I would have to hit here and somehow hold the cue ball on the table for this short distance to the rail. And if it bounces at all, even if I make the 4, the cue ball goes off. So this is not a good jump shot to make. Move that over just a hair because I gave myself an angle to the end rail. So here, I really don't have very many options, do I? I can come off this rail and just hit it, and it's going to bounce out and bounce over, and the cue ball's going to stay here, and I'm going to sell out the table. I have to hit that at the right speed to get the 4 to freeze over on this rail to at least make it a difficult shot, and even then they get to take a shot at the 9. Okay? Well, if I shoot past the 7 and I swerve it towards the 4, okay? To hit the 4, remember after the swerve, it's going to have the same English that it had that I put on it. So if I put right-hand English on it, it's going to have right-hand English. It's actually going to have pretty extreme right-hand English because of the way the shot works. So if I shoot past the 7 and I swerve towards this shot, if I hit anywhere from about here all the way up to a 3/4 hit on the ball, I'm going to get a good hit, right? So I've got pretty extreme right-hand English, so when it hits here, even if it's out here, it's going to spin this way. Now I can use my swerve shot fairly safely, and not only do I have a good chance of hitting it, I have a good chance of making that shot. Why do I have a good chance of making that shot? Well, if the cue ball is spinning to the right, then the natural gear action is going to throw this to the left. So even if I come out here and I come over and I hit it, and it would normally shoot it here, the spin from that cue ball is going to throw the 4 towards the pocket. And that's what we always want to do if we have a shot where we need to, where it's kind of iffy. So this one's a pretty big angle. So if I shoot past the 7, I'm shooting here, and I need to get to at least there. So I'm going to be putting full right-hand English on this, and I'm going to get a little bit of draw by raising the butt of the cue to get around it. This is not a true masse. This is still a swerve shot. Remember that even though I'm trying to turn here to the shot, it is better to go past and turn than it is to go short and turn too early, because it's going to hit that ball. So I need to jack up a little bit. I need to get my speed right. You see there, I not only hit it, I almost made it. I went past the 7, and then I made the turn towards the 4. That throwing action, almost threw it into the pocket. I'm perfectly happy with that hit in that situation. So, and in fact, I got lucky and got behind the 9, so he's going to have to swerve to make this shot. So let's talk about use number 5 of the swerve shot. Now this is a really important use of the swerve shot. It's related to our first use of the drag shot. Let's say we've got something like this. Okay? In fact, let's create a bigger angle. All right, so if we take a look at this shot, the tangent line for this shot goes here, right? So use number 5 is to change the tangent line of the shot. If I shoot here, my tangent line goes through and it nips this side of the 9, and then it goes over to the rail and across like this, right? Most of that time, we're not going to have a shot on that 5. But, and that's true as long as we shoot straight to the 4, because our contact point on the 4 puts our cue ball right here. That 9 needs to be just a little bit over. So our tangent line is right here, is where the cue ball is going to go. It's going to nip the 9, and it's going to come over. Now we could try to slow roll this. Again, if we slow roll it, we might roll off. If you slow roll it, then it becomes, the tangent line is here, right? Well, okay, so our tangent line is here. So our forward roll takes us into the 9. Okay? So how do we deal with this? Well, the way that we deal with it is we can swerve this to the left. So we play a swerve shot and we play out to where we would have a straight in shot on the 4, right? So here's our straight in shot on the 4. If we shoot to anywhere on this line and we swerve into it, we want to hit the 4. Remember, we're going to have left-hand English, so we're going to, the ball is going to be spinning this way. When we hit the 4, it's going to push it that way. So if we were to shoot so that it swerves maybe here, right? So it comes down, it swerves, and we're actually going to hit more on this side because of that throw to the right. We're going to hit more on this side. Well, now our tangent line goes in between the 9 and the rail. And that's what we want, right? So we'll want to throw this. We'll want to swerve to make this shot to change the tangent line from here to here. That's what we're doing here, okay? Full disclosure, I'm gonna have to shoot this a couple of times because my speed and everything is off, but I want to show you this shot because it's really important. Actually, let's make this a little more difficult, okay? Because I know that some of you are going to say, well, I would just slow roll that in and roll to the end rail. Well, let's take that away by putting the 6 ball down there. Now we need to roll at a more precise angle in between. So we want our tangent line, means we have to make contact here, okay? Well, if we make contact there, we don't make the ball. But if we swerve the cue ball around, we can make contact here, throw the ball in, and the cue ball rolls down that tangent line in between 6 and 9. So let's take a look at that. See, there's the slow roll. And you saw we got stuck. So now let's shoot the same shot, but now we're going to swerve it into the shot. And you see how that nicely rolls in between the 6 and the 5? I've got a shot. I overhit it a little bit, but you see how we controlled the tangent line using our swerve shot. Final use of the swerve shot. Actually, this is shot 6. I've got one more after this. So let's say we've got a really thin cut. Okay, this is a pretty thin cut. Here's the other way to use a swerve shot. So we have two options here. Let's say that this is just a really super thin cut. I could make this thinner than it is here. If I was in form, I'm not, so I'm going to have to do this with a little bit less of a difficulty level. There are two ways to use Swerve to help us on this shot. The first way is what we just talked about. We shoot down here and we swerve towards it. We try to hit it thinner, and we throw it towards the pocket. The other way, though, is that we can swerve this way. We can go this way and then swerve across it and spin it into the pocket. Now you'll hear commentators talk about this. It's called twisting the shot in, okay? So a lot of people think when they hear a commentator say, oh, well, he can make this, but he's got to twist it in. What they're thinking is they're just putting extreme side spin on it and throwing it in. That's not what twisting it in is. What twisting it in is shooting deliberately thick on the ball, swerving away from the shot, and letting it cut it. And yes, we're throwing it in, but we're also getting a better angle on that shot by doing that swerve shot. If I tried to cut this in with a normal stroke, I have to let the cue ball go all over the table. If I swerve, that means I'm going to drag, and then I'm going to come across, and I will have lost most of my momentum by the time it starts rolling forward. Now this is definitely a touch shot. It's definitely one you should know, but it does take a lot of practice. So that's an example of twisting it in. Final use of the swerve shot for this video. You see people shoot it, it's the 90-degree cut into the corner. The key to this is hitting the rail first, but you have to hit it almost directly here, so that when it spins off, it throws the ball to the pocket. Well, we can take advantage of swerve to make this shot easier. And we can do that whether we're going to play a safe or whether we're going to play to make it. And I'll show you both ways. Right off the table. So let's say we have something like this, okay? Here are my two options. Now I could play straight into that 4 and just kick off the side and try to come around the table and drop in here. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong with that because the 4 comes off the rail and out. And so if I overhit it or I hit back here, I leave the jump shot. So I don't want to do that. I'm an aggressive player. I might think about trying to make this shot. If I want to make it, now if you look at that angle to get that to cut in, if I just use left-hand English, right, I have to hit here, and I have to hit perfectly inside this tiny, tiny, tiny little area. How do I increase my odds of being able to cut that in? Well, I swerve it, because if I was shooting that shot, say here, right? If I'm shooting that shot on this line, let's say the cue ball was, if the cue ball was here, right? Then I can just cut it in, and I can do it with left-hand English, and it'll spin it towards the pocket, and we get all those great effects. This is a much easier shot than this. Well, I can change the angle that I'm coming into this for the same way with that swerve shot, right? I can aim here and swerve into it, or here and swerve into it, and I'll have the right English to throw it towards the pocket, and I'll have a better angle. I won't be shooting straight into the rail. I'll be shooting out here somewhere, and I can swerve into it. Gives me a much better chance of making that ball. Okay, that's the trick to this shot. The trick to this shot is to shoot out here, nowhere near the four, and swerve into it. Okay, now in this case, we're going to want to get down into this area before we swerve. So we're going to hit about 2/3 of the table. We're going to hit it with bottom left English at about 7 o'clock, or 7:30 actually, because we want a lot of spin. And we're going to aim past the four. We're going to aim for that little area that we would normally have aimed for. But what we're going to do is we're going to hit this at speed so that the natural deflection of the cue sends the cue ball out, and then the natural spin brings it back in. So that's what we're doing here. So we're going to swerve this shot. And that was a bad swerve. Again, I may have to shoot this 2 or 3 times because my speed's off. So I'm going to be honest, my speed control is too far off to make this. But you saw, or I'll show you, almost every time I missed, I ended up safe with at least something like this where it was a long bag shot to nowhere. you can see it's pretty repeatable to get safe like that, or at least to get a long, extremely thin cut or a bank. I prefer in this situation, rather than trying to make that ball though, I prefer going the other way with it. I prefer to swerve to the right and come across it and hit it really thin and send the cue ball back down here. And hopefully that force stays up in this general area. Okay, so that's what I prefer to do here. So how do you get that thin hit on the 4? Well, so what I'm going to do on this is my point of aim is going to be a half ball hit. So I'm going to aim the center of the cue ball for the edge of the 4 ball. I want to aim for a half ball hit. And I'm going to let my swerve carry it, okay? So I'm going to let my swerve carry it to the right, which is going to give me this really, really super thin hit. I'm hitting this at 730 on, or I'm sorry, at 430 on the cue ball, and letting it swerve this way to get that super thin hit. So let's look at what that looks like. So there you have it. Those are the tips for today. They will take practice. You will have to practice these shots to get them down, but they are absolutely invaluable. It may be one of the most important shots in the game once you get beyond the basic shots. Again, thanks for watching. I will be doing more videos more often as I come up with these ways to do it. That was 7 ways to use Swerve. And actually there was a bonus 8th in there. So ways to use Swerve effectively in a game. With that, have a great day and we'll catch you next time.